Good evening. Welcome everyone to the board meeting of the Tahoe Truckee Unified School District. Today's February 2nd, 2022. If you will all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, but not stand so we don't see everybody's torsos, but let's do our Pledge of Allegiance while we're looking at each other. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. Thank you. I know. Sorry, I lost my voice there for a second. Okay, the board did meet in closed session this evening and we took no reportable action in closed session. Superintendent Geisels, any changes to this evening's agenda?
No, President Zurich, no changes.
Would someone like to move approval of the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
No, we do need to do a roll call. We've been doing that, but we need to make sure we do a roll call being remote. So all in favor?
Member Lidak?
Aye.
Member Hennessy? Member Driller?
Aye.
Clerk Larson?
Yes.
President Zurich?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next, I'm sorry. So we have the superintendent's report, 7.1, please.
Thank you, President Zurich. First of all, I'd like to welcome everyone that's joining in tonight for our board meeting. And I also want to thank our TTUSD families. January 14th, we peaked at 428 cases. We definitely experienced a surge. And today we're at 104 cases, which, remember, back in the old days, we pivoted to distance learning for 19. So I wanted to also say that for this year, we have reached over 1,000 cases total. So I just want to thank, I cannot say enough about our entire community. I know parents were frustrated about our more restrictive quarantine protocols, but I really want to thank you for your flexibility, for your patience. I want to thank our teachers, our classified staff, and most especially the people on this screen, our district leadership team. They were in the trenches like everyone else in our TTUSD family, our staff, and they really felt the pandemic on a personal and professional level. And I cannot thank you all enough for what you did and how hard you worked. You were amazing. And then lastly, on behalf of the district leadership team tonight, we want to thank the board. We want to thank the board for your steadfast, courageous leadership in sometimes not so kind moments. And we want to thank you for your support. And the district leadership team and I wanted just to say hello to you and make sure that you know that we're behind you and we support you. And we're thankful for everything that you have done as far as your leadership. And I'm going to make it really brief, and that is all I wanted to say. And so, district leadership team, you're more than welcome to hang out in our Google Meet, or you can watch on TTM if you like. But I just wanted to say that and extend that to our board. And thank you, everyone. It was a tough 3 weeks, really tough, and each of you played a huge, crucial role, from a parent to a student to an employee, and to the board most especially. So thank you so much for working with us. We stayed open. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you, Superintendent Geisels, and thank you for the very kind words. It takes a team,
Yes,
and we are one, so thank you.
Yes.
Next, we are going to move on to resolutions, and we're going to approve a resolution, I hope, that commemorates National School Counseling Week. Superintendent Geisels.
Yes, I'm going to ask Mr. Santos to take it away. Mr. Santos, if you would like to lead this one item.
Yes. Hello, everybody. So yes, the week of the school counselor is coming up next week on the 7th through the 11th. And our students are definitely, and staff and families are fortunate that we have a school counselor at every single one of our sites. In fact, some sites have more, just depending on enrollment. But especially now that we're going through COVID and a lot of our social emotional needs out there, what a better time to celebrate what they offer. We have 14 school counselors in our district, not to mention other people provide counseling as well But I do want to recognize our school counselors now and then for next week as well. So thank you for this opportunity.
Any board questions? Do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Thank you. I just want to comment before we vote that I feel so lucky that our community has provided us with the resources to have school counselors. They are invaluable as we provide social and emotional support to our students and our staff at times. And we're so lucky because so many districts do not have that resource. So thank you to the community for that. Unless anyone else has a comment, would someone like to move to approve this resolution?
Actually, I just wanted to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm remembering that most of these counselors, or at least a majority of them, are funded through Measure A. Is that, am I recalling that correctly? Or Measure AA, I guess, is what we called it last time. But just a big shout out to the community for consistently supporting Measure AA, because it does help us supplement our staffing models to be able to provide counseling at each site. And they are absolutely, as you said, Kim, invaluable. We are so blessed. And with that, I will move to approve the resolution.
I'll second Resolution 14.
Yeah, thank you.
But no, I'm glad you did that, Kirsten. I was just going to ask you to do that. I'll second.
Going blind.
Member Levac,
Aye.
Member Hennessy,
Member Hennessy is having technical difficulties getting back onto the meeting. So she isn't able to vote right now. Hopefully she'll be able to get back on soon.
okay, thank you. Member Driller,
Aye.
Clerk Larson,
Yes.
President Zurich.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Next, we have 2 donations from our amazingly generous community. The first is from the North Tahoe Parent Teacher Organization for the purchase of couches for North Tahoe High School.
Yes, this is for North Tahoe High School. With the return of the in-person learning at North Tahoe High School, as Ms. Mitchell's on our meeting today, and she can add comments if she like. Students often find themselves sitting on the floor and eating their lunches, so they've asked for more couches. And our wonderful PTO organization at North Tahoe has provided $33,564.56 donation for the couches, and we were really excited about how this enhances our school environment. Ms. Mitchell, do you have any comments you want to make?
Nope, this is just something that the students actually asked for, that they wanted, and that their PTO could step up and offer to get that for them is amazing.
So we're asking that the board approve this gracious donation from our PTO.
Any public comment on this item? Would someone like to make a motion to accept this donation?
I'll make a motion to accept the donation for the North Tahoe couches.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Member Levac,
Aye.
Member Driller,
Aye.
Clerk Larson,
Yes.
President Zurich.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a donation from the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation to our wonderful STEP program for supplies and enrichment activities.
Yes, they have made a donation for the STEP program through the Wisner Family Tahoe Endowment Fund. It will go towards supplies and enrichment activities for the STEP program. The family prefers not to be recognized and refers to the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation as the grantee. So we're happy to accept the $2,000 donation from TTCF on their behalf.
Questions? Public comment?
There is no public comment for this item.
Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the STEP Foundation grant.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Member Levac,
Aye.
Member Hennessy,
Aye.
Member Driller,
Aye.
Clerk Larson,
Yes.
President Zurich.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Next, we have a CATS Amsterdam, excuse me, I'm having problem speaking tonight. The CATS Amsterdam Foundation 21-22 Mental Health Grant. Superintendent Geisels.
Mr. Santos, would you like to speak to this item?
Absolutely. So the CATS Amsterdam Foundation has been around for a while. They are affiliated with Vail Resorts and ski and mountain community towns, really focusing on the mental health needs of the locals, including our youth and our students. They've been very generous, especially in our area. They work with the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation. Kim Bradley, who oversees the majority of our wellness supports, works closely with the foundation and CATS Amsterdam Foundation. This additional $10,000 for this year will go towards continuing the mental health supports that we have, trying to basically have across the district. Definitely will go to good use regarding mental health needs and supports in our schools. So I want to thank them, as always, for their support.
Yes, very much. Thank you. Any board questions on this? Public comment on this item?
There's no public comment on this item.
Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion on accepting this amazing contribution?
I'll make a motion to accept the CATS, I can't bring it back over, the CATS Amsterdam Foundation grant.
Yes, with gratitude, I will second.
All in favor?
Member Levack,
Aye.
Member Hennessy,
Aye.
Member Driller,
Aye.
Clerk Larson,
yes,
President Zurek.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, item 11.1, and that is a presentation from the Tahoe Truckee Workforce Housing Agency.
Yes, as you know, TTUSD is a founding member and funder of the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency. And tonight we have the pleasure of having Emily Vitus, who is our executive director of the agency, and she's presenting an update on existing projects and programs and the land mapping exercise. Emily, are you on?
I sure am. Thank you, Carmen. Hi, everybody. Good to see you all. And I think we have Clarissa, your legal counsel, joining us here in a few minutes. We were thinking we might be going on a little later than 5:45, and so she is joining us here in a few minutes. So I'll get started on the presentation, and hopefully she will be with us by the time I get to the land mapping conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see here. Okay, can you see that front slide?
Yes. Yes.
Great. Okay, wonderful. Let me just make sure I'm not doing any mirroring of anything here. Okay, great. So everyone can see that slide?
Yes.
Thumbs up. Awesome. Great. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here again. I try to make it every 6 months or so to provide an update to all of our member agencies around where we are, where we're going, and anything exciting that I need your feedback or support on. So tonight we're going to be talking about, this will let me change slides. There we go. I'll be providing an update on our work in 2021, talking about where we're going in the next year and programs and projects underway. And then I want to bring you in on the land mapping exercise that we completed in 2021 and what that looks like for potentially considering workforce housing development on school district owned land. So before I jump into what we're working on, I always like to give you all kind of a window into what the housing landscape across Truckee Tahoe region looks like. So looking at, our regional partners and what they're working on, but also what are the numbers right now? So on the right side of the screen, you see, average rent, median sales price, and then an item on the regional housing implementation plan that I'll jump into here in a second. On rent and median sales price, we are seeing a flattening. So right now, I actually spoke with landing locals this week, and they said the average per room rent right now is about $1,030. So that is down a little bit from where we were when I checked these numbers. However, still very unaffordable for many of your employees. So while the numbers are starting to flatten a little bit, the numbers are just still too high for our local workforce to be able to comfortably afford long-term housing, whether it's for rent or for purchase. On the regional housing efforts underway, what's happening outside of the Workforce Housing Agency's purview? What are our regional partners working on? So I've listed a few items here on the left, just for your knowledge. One that I did want to mention is the Mountain Housing Council just completed their regional housing implementation plan. That's a study kind of looking at or providing actionable items mostly specific to workforce housing development. So what can we as a region do to bring more units online over the next 10 years? And from that regional housing implementation plan, they also did an update to that survey that we conducted in 2016 that kind of led to the creation of the Housing Council, the Workforce Housing Agency, et cetera. And the bottom of the right-hand part of the screen shows that we are looking at a need of 9,500 units to house our local workforce. A concerning number, up about 1,000 units from when we did this survey back in 2016. So just some information I like to share with you all before I jump into the specifics around the Workforce Housing Agency. And if anybody has any questions or comments, happy to open all of that up at the end of the presentation, and we'll cover everything together for Q&A. Okay, so jumping into Workforce Housing Agency, what did 2021 look like for us? So 2021 was the first year that we were looking at housing operations in full. 2020, we founded in March, didn't start housing specific operations until, August or September. So 2021 was the first year that was our main focus. We also expanded to include 3 new member agencies in 2021, the town of Truckee and Nevada County and Placer County. So we are now looking at 7 member agencies and about 2,300 employees when we talk about the services that we provide and who we provide them to. Our employee housing concierge service, you're all aware of. It's just a pretty way or a nice way of saying, housing services for our employees, housing education for our employees. So I'm hearing from your employees on, almost a weekly basis, and they're asking questions like, this is my household income. What kind of housing can I access? Can you connect me with a lender so I can understand what a mortgage would look like for my family? What affordable housing options are there for me in the community right now? So we're providing education and connection for your employees as it relates to housing access and affordability in the region. We sunsetted our housing match program. That was the program I shared with all of you at the last meeting, and we started a new long-term rental pilot program. That program is actually looking at more incentives to unlock additional units for our employees' access. Now, the town of Truckee also has a rental program, and so really our program is acting as a complementary program that looks at units outside of the town of Truckee's boundaries to access for our employees' use. We just launched that program in November, and I'll show you some numbers on the next slide around what those programs did for our employees in the last year or so. We built out a down payment assistance program that we will likely be bringing to you all in the next few months. My board will be reviewing it at the February board meeting, and this is a program that's an opt-in program. So we've talked in the past about the programs that are kind of the foundation of our work that are built into our budget, and then the programs that are an opt-in so that member agencies can choose as to whether they want to fund or participate. That's what the down payment assistance program will be, an opt-in program. And we will share more with you once we have a kind of approved guidelines from our board to bring to the greater boards of our member agencies. We've been pursuing and kind of trying to crack the master leasing nut. That is actually looking at larger blocks of units in existing or soon to be built developments for our employees' use. And then finally, the big one, workforce housing development. So we are looking at publicly owned lands, our member agencies own lands, and also looking at regional partners and parcels that are owned by the Forest Service. The town and the counties all have land in addition to the land that our founding members have. So trying to understand how we can potentially look at publicly owned land for workforce housing development for our employees' access, but also potentially for general public access. So this just provides, the numbers tied to all those programs I just spoke about. You may have seen on the right side of the last screen that we are, we place some fairly conservative numbers around goals for how many employees we help in our first few years. Year one, we are hoping to help 1% of our employees actually access housing for purchase or for rent. So when you look at these numbers, we're really only counting the numbers that are housing match, the pilot program, and home purchase. So our goal for 2021 was to help 18 of our employees access units. And I believe here we're at 22 or 23. So proud that we were able to reach those numbers, but we know that those numbers are not big enough when you're talking about 2,300 employees or a full region, and you're looking at kind of the crisis that we're in on the housing front. Still, these are exciting numbers, the numbers to be proud of. We know that the work that we're doing is making an impact on our employees and our member agencies, and we're working hard to further develop programs and understand how we can pursue housing development so that these numbers are doubled, tripled, et cetera, over the next few years. So let's see, what are we looking at for this year? The first is we recognize that the landscape has changed drastically. I know all of you are feeling it, you're all hearing it. Things have changed a lot since we founded the agency in March of 2020. So how can we refine our housing activities, our areas of focus, so that we can make sure that we are really zeroed in on the most important activities, workforce housing development, focusing on programs. So we are conducting a board retreat or holding a board retreat in March, and that will kind of lead to this refined housing work plan, some strategic planning, kind of strategic plan light, and having the board kind of help us staff understand how we can focus and refine the activities that we currently have in place. 2022 is also going to be a year where we are really focusing on workforce housing development. We just brought in a new employee, a housing program manager, who will be able to focus solely on the programs so that myself, our advisors, our board can really focus on workforce housing development, the administrative, the operations, all of that, the side of running a public agency. And now we have someone that is solely focused on the programming piece. So that's kind of the main focus for 2022. However, strategic plan and the work that we're doing with the board over the next few months could identify that we need to solely focus on one of these, or we need to expand our areas of focus. So more to come on that once we've conducted this strategic planning exercise and understand kind of how we can best show up for our employees and our community. So let's move away from the Workforce Housing Agency in general, and I want to bring you all in on this land mapping exercise that we've conducted over the last year and a half or so. So some of you may remember in 2018, the Mountain Housing Council conducted a similar exercise. We were able to work with the same consultant and look specifically at the land that is owned by our founding member agencies. So the hospital, the school district, the airport, and the utility district. We worked with the consultant to map all of the land owned by our founding member agencies and then take those parcels and kind of put them through a set of criteria to develop an opportunity matrix of the top sites that could potentially hold workforce housing. So the criteria that we looked at was very similar to the LIHTC or the process that we looked at in 2018 with the Mountain Housing Council, which you're looking at proximity to schools, proximity to services, groceries, healthcare, hospitals, and that's how we're identifying if these are sites that could be of interest to or for workforce housing development. We're also looking at slopes, access, zoning, etc. So all of that was put together in a spreadsheet, and then the consultant selected the top 8 or 10 based on that set of criteria and created an opportunity matrix. The school district owns 30 parcels. All of those were looked at and analyzed in this exercise. We actually had 4 school district sites on that final opportunity matrix, but 2 of them we moved off because they were very small parcels. So while they were vacant and ideal, they were less than 2 acres, and so we were really looking at how can we make a big impact on the parcels that are owned by our member agencies. So we came away with 2 sites that are included in that opportunity matrix, and I'm happy to share more about those sites if it's of interest of the board to the board. So just a quick, want to show you what the maps looked like from the exercise. These are all specific to the school district. So the consultant created maps and then kind of zoomed in and looking at all the 30 parcels that are owned by the school district. And then from there, placed in a matrix so we could understand where are they located, acres, slope, environmental concerns, are they conceivable for workforce housing? The spreadsheet looks much more robust than what you're seeing here. I just wanted you to have a brief understanding of all the details that were put into this mapping exercise. These are the cut sheets that were created by the consultant for each of those top 8 opportunity matrix sites. This is actually one of the school district owned parcels that was in that opportunity matrix. It's a 10-acre site over off of 267 in Tahoe Vista or Kingswood. And the cut sheets really provide all of the slope details, parcel location details, etc. And it's something that we can pull from if there is interest in pursuing any of those opportunity sites. So what have we done with that information since? Specific to the school district, we, after we had kind of the opportunity matrix, started thinking about how we could pursue some of these parcels. We started to talk with district staff, and then we ended up bringing in your general counsel to really understand if there's an opportunity to pursue housing on school district owned land, perhaps. So those conversations led us to learn about a joint occupancy approach model, which I will share with you on the next slide, so I won't go into it here. But then we also looked at those opportunity sites with the lens of the approving agencies. So we've spoken and met with the town, the county, TRPA. We've actually looked at the sites with some interested developers just to see, with that lens or that frame, are these sites of interest? So we've looked at a couple different sites owned by all of our agencies, but specific to the school district, we have met with the town, county, TRPA, just to understand what those sites hold, what the opportunity is there, etc. So as it relates to the joint occupancy approach model, I do want Clarissa, if she's on, to come in and provide just a quick overview of what that looks like. And I have spoken with a few of you individually and shared, this joint occupancy approach, how it ties in with the Teachers Housing Act of 2016, and if there's a way that we could potentially look at these models as a way to pursue workforce housing development on district-owned land. So Clarissa, if you are here, I'd love for you just to give a quick, few-minute overview of what these models look like and how we may be able to work with them. Do you see her on here, Lupita or Carmen?
Yes, she's here, and Ed, it's letting her in. Ed?
Wonderful.
Clarissa is in the room currently. Clarissa, can you unmute yourself?
There she goes. She's got it.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Clarissa.
Okay. Excellent.
Thanks for
Hello.
joining us.
Thank you. So, as Emily was mentioning, I'm currently working with probably a dozen districts throughout California who are pursuing workforce housing projects, and I'm happy to say you all are sort of ahead of the curve in terms of approach and really partnering with your jurisdictions in your area to try to bring this type of project to fruition. In terms of the constructs that Emily mentioned for joint occupancy as well as the Teacher Housing Act, back in 2016, the California legislature adopted or approved legislation titled the Teacher Housing Act of 2016. It's a little bit misleading in that, although it's called the Teacher Housing Act, it's actually for all district workforce. So it's not just teachers, it's all district workforce housing. And so actually should be called, School District Workforce Housing Act of 2016, but they haven't corrected that misnomer. And that essentially allows the district to utilize school district property that is no longer needed for school purposes, so for classroom purposes, to utilize that property for workforce housing projects, to provide affordable housing to your entire workforce, and to partner with developers in your area to allow that type of project to come to fruition. School districts traditionally do not, as their core mission, do not build housing, but this act, as well as just, other statutory provisions such as the joint occupancy statutes allow for school districts to build this sort of housing to attract, retain, great talent for your district. And when the Teacher Housing Act was initially approved, it was really focused on school district housing. But the legislature, recognized that the partnership with other developers and other public entities in your jurisdictions was critical to bringing these projects, forward. And so they've since amended those statutes to allow for these sorts of projects to be used not only for school district housing, but also for housing for workforce, from other public agencies and entities in your district. And so the JPA, of which this district is a part of, is the perfect vehicle for this type of project. And so that's sort of the overall umbrella. And then joint occupancy statutes allow for the school district to really go out to the public, to developers, to say, hey, we have this property, we're interested in developing it for workforce housing for teachers. What can you help us do on our property? And so like through an RFP process, you would be able to do that without going through some of the traditional statutory processes that school districts have to go through in order to lease or sell property, such as some of you may be familiar with the 7-Eleven committee, or having to make offers to your local jurisdiction to sell or lease your land. You get to bypass some of that process and simply put your property out to the public for workforce housing directly, without having to go through those other processes. So it's a very streamlined process that gives the district a lot of flexibility to make its property available for this purpose, to really facilitate workforce housing in your region. And so I'm happy to answer any other questions that you may have, but that's sort of a general overview. Emily, I don't know if there was anything else you wanted me to touch on.
No, that's perfect. And Clarissa, if you're available to hang around after this next slide, I'd like to
Sure.
Ask the board, questions
Absolutely.
on anything that we presented on tonight, but specifically around this, since we are making a bit of an ask to the board. So thank you so much. And Clarissa, correct me if I'm wrong, but this model also allows the housing to be opened up to more than just school district employees, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was that amendment that I was mentioning. It was initially focused on school district workforce, but
Right.
the legislature understood the importance of making this available to a broader sort of audience of users, just to make it work, even for districts to be able to fund these projects. And so partnering with other local jurisdictions, such as the district has here in the JPA, really is, again, that perfect vehicle for making it available to the workforce in your region that the legislature was contemplating.
Right. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Clarissa. Okay, I will wrap this up, but we are not asking the board to say yes to workforce housing tonight. What we're really asking for is for the board to consider or provide direction to the staff, potentially to create an ad hoc committee of sorts to spend a few months really understanding the parcels in which you own, the analysis that we did through the land mapping exercise, your long-term plan as it relates to school facility development, and see if there are any of those parcels that came up in our land mapping exercise or that you currently own that could be considered for workforce housing development. So while we've done a lot of the front end work or the groundwork for this so that we have an understanding of the opportunity, we are just asking if the board is interested or interested in providing direction to the staff to enter into a more public period of analyzing your sites and determining if there are any that could be available for workforce housing development. So with that, Carmen, I'm not sure if the board can provide direction in that way, but that is the request that I have for you this evening, to further analyze these sites and potentially work with us to better understand if there's an opportunity here. And other than that, just any questions from the entire presentation for myself or Clarissa, and happy to answer them.
Thank you, Clarissa. Thank you, Emily. Superintendent Geisels?
I think what we would like to do, Emily, since this is an info item, we would have to bring it back if you're asking for a formal board direction. So what I would suggest is that we bring back the item as an info now action on February 16th and have the board given that time 2 weeks to review your presentation, to provide any questions that they may have that we can answer either beforehand or that evening. And then
I'm happy to provide more detail, a brief outline of what that few months of analysis or exploration could look like. So you have a better understanding of what the work would look like on the staff side, the board, the workforce housing agency, et cetera.
Right. That would be great. And then we can have a formal action item on the February 16th agenda, if that's okay with you.
Wonderful. Great.
Right. And an understanding on if there's an ad hoc, whether it's a Brown Act committee, et cetera.
Exactly.
Because I think it could be. I have a question for Clarissa. Clarissa, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Sorry. So if we go back one slide, the Land Act thing, the joint occupancy approach, that means the district maintains ownership of the property. Is that correct?
Yes. So what happens in a joint occupancy is the district could ground lease the site for up to 99 years. Under common property law, you can't lease your property for more than 99 years. It's called the rule of perpetuity. So 99 years is the maximum that anyone can lease their property. It was previously 66 years and now it's 99 years. And previously the joint occupancy required the state to approve the transaction. Effective July of 2020, that requirement to get state approval was repealed. So the district can proceed on its own decision without having to seek state approval. But it would be a ground lease to your question.
Right. Thank you. And I will make a comment that, and I'll, of course, ask everyone else for questions. It would help me to understand, Emily, what I know that we're talking really about the district properties, but I'd like to understand the other agency properties, how that fits in the 8 that you talked about.
Of course.
As we move forward, that would be, I think, give good perspective.
Okay.
So other questions from the board? Dee Dee, you have your hand up.
I do. Emily, I apologize publicly for not being able to connect with you prior, but we
That's okay. We're all busy. I understand. Thank you.
But Kim, that was the same thing I was going to ask you, Emily, is that this is directed toward the TTUSD, and it would be interesting to see if we could either see what the other guys are doing or be on the same page. So if that ad hoc thing starts with us, are we able to do this? Would we be able to group up with the others and just to sort of see how they're going, so that we're, again, not duplicating, but also maximizing the use of all the properties that you see.
Yes, and I do want to share with you that the school district is the only member agency that we're actually proposing that we move forward with at this time, because you have this joint occupancy approach model. As you all are aware, with publicly owned land, there is the long surplusing requirements around giving up land for workforce housing development, which is why we are intrigued by going down this pathway with the school district. But I will provide all the information. I can give you all the information for the land mapping exercise, so you can see what those top 8 opportunity sites are. A bit of more transparency into that process, and so you can have understanding of what all the sites are, on a map.
Gotcha. And I think we had mentioned at one point that we had talked about trying to utilize places that were already established, like those hotels and the vacant hotels that we have in our many places. And so that's that's something that I would like to throw in there as well. But I do appreciate the 2 weeks to make a decision.
Of course.
Can I just, this is Clarissa, I just wanted to kind of chime in on that question too. The other wrinkle here, and we need to confer with the other JPA members, but the district is in a unique position in that the Teacher Housing Act allows for the district to restrict the occupancy of housing projects on its land to district workforce as well as workforce of these other agencies, and then more broadly members, you can branch out to members of the public. That is a unique ability that the district holds for district sites that many cities and other public agencies do not have. So there are federal rules around housing discrimination, essentially, that cannot be breached, except that if there are policies and legislation such as what we have in the Teacher Housing Act that allows for limiting occupancy in this way. Most cities are going to be reluctant, most cities and towns are going to be reluctant to limit occupancy on an affordable housing project that they would, initiate on their property. We actually in statute have that right to do that without running afoul of federal anti-discrimination laws and how that's, implemented through certain state, constitutional provisions. So we may find that looking at other properties might also impose that impediment to being able to limit housing to the workforce of the agencies that are a part of the JPA. We know that we can do that on district property because the Teacher Housing Act by state statute says that we can. There aren't corresponding statutes for some of these other agencies that are part of that are members of the JPA that allow them to limit occupancy in those same ways without running afoul of those anti-discrimination laws. So I just want to put that out there. I know that might be getting in the weeds a little bit, but that could also be why some of the other properties aren't as suitable for a location for this type of housing. That being said, because the district is the entity that is contributing the land for the housing, the district might have the ability to have a greater number of units allocated to it out of the housing that comes, that is built on their property, or other benefits that come to the district in exchange for the district using its land for the housing. So I hope that makes sense. Again, happy to answer any questions on that, but I wanted to kind of raise that because that is a nuance here that that may come up as this due diligence is done over the next several months.
Thank you, Clarissa. That's very interesting and helpful. Chris, you've had your hand up.
Thank you. I just, one of the questions I have, again, not going to get into the weeds. I know the time will come for that, but the difference between affordable housing and workforce housing. So if I understand correctly, affordable housing is the cost for the tenant or homeowner is based on the median income of the county. So is that correct? Because what I'm trying to, I guess, let me just ask you what my question is and then you kind of fix my question. If this were to go forward and we build workforce housing for our entities here in Tahoe, Truckee, do those teachers, custodians, nurses, what have you, do they have to qualify on county or local earnings?
That is a really good question, and I'm glad you brought that up because the Workforce Housing Agency is not trying to pursue housing that has any affordable housing limits as it relates to government subsidies. So one of the issues we're seeing specific to your employees, but the agency as a whole, is many of our employees make slightly too much to be able to pursue affordable housing. The definition of affordable housing, 80% or below area median income. And so the Workforce Housing Agency's mission is not to pursue restricted or subsidized housing in that way. It is to pursue housing that fits the missing middle, the workforce as it relates to the member agencies in which we represent. So when we're talking about workforce housing development, we're talking about development that actually meets the household income needs of your employees. And that would be determined through the studies that we conduct to understand what those needs, household incomes, number of rooms, all of those details. So we are not proposing an affordable housing complex in which your employees actually have to make under a certain cap to be able to participate in the housing. We're looking to pursue housing that fits the needs of our member agencies. And if there is a need to subsidize that housing by our local member agencies, maybe the school district's kind of contribution is the land, and the other participants' contribution is the dollars that actually pay down that housing so our employees can afford it. So this is one of the things we really need to understand if we were to move forward with a period of analysis and really considering if this is something the district's interested in. This is one of the questions that we really need to answer and start to think through if we were to pursue this opportunity.
And I would just add to that the Housing Act does contemplate some level of affordability. It doesn't prescribe that the entirety of the project fit within a certain affordability level. That being said, you are in, either the town, city, or jurisdiction that the property would be located in, and this is not a typical school project where you would go to DSA and get your approvals there, et cetera, and exempt yourself from local zoning. Instead, you would be subject to local zoning, right? And so part of that would be working with the jurisdiction that you are located within that may have some affordability requirements, i.e. 10% of the project has to meet, the town's or the city's affordability limits. So there may be some units that fit within that, salary cap sort of construct, but there's flexibility beyond whatever that baseline is to make it available to a broader range of district workforce as well as other JPA member workforce, income levels in their households. So I agree with Emily. That's one of those things that, the affordability levels will not only dictate who the property is accessible to, like who it's available to, but it's also going to drive the cost of housing, et cetera. So it has a couple of tentacles that have to be really dug into to understand how that impacts the overall project.
Thank you. Any further questions? So we will bring this back in 2 weeks.
Yes.
And we will have some homework that we will do between now and then that Ms. Vitas will provide us.
Mm-hmm.
Are we good?
Wonderful.
Board? Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you,
I
ladies.
appreciate it. Great to see everybody, and thank you, Clarissa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Super excited.
I'll
So
be in
thank
touch.
you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, next we have our consent agenda. Superintendent Geisels, does staff need to pull any items from the consent agenda?
No, we do not, President Zurich.
Any board members wish to pull any items from the consent agenda? Would someone like to move approval?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Member Levac,
Aye.
Member Hennessy,
Aye.
Member Driller,
Yes.
Clerk Larson,
Yes.
President Zurich.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And then we get to hear from our associations, and tonight we have CSEA up first.
Yes, Melissa Cruz could not attend this evening, so on her behalf, Ms. Zapatini is going to read her comments.
Thank you.
So Melissa's one of those employees we have who's a mom also and also employee, and she's doing other things in the district tonight. So I'm grateful that I'm able to read this for her. It is written in the first person, so as I read, thinking that she's talking to you. So, first, I would like to sing the praises of my people. I can't say enough about all the classified staff of this district and how January was probably one of the most challenging of this very real pandemic. This past month, we have come to realize this is not just a pandemic of sick people, but also one that has run through employees that didn't go home sick or get put into quarantine. Those who are left standing to take the reins and hold down the fort really need a big pat on the back. Thank you for sticking with it and for doing 2, 3, sometimes 4 people's jobs to keep this district going, along with all the nurses who have been keeping our 2 testing sites up and running to keep us safe and make a huge effort to keep us open. Second, we have a job steward now. Rosa Davis will be voted in tomorrow at our monthly meeting. We are so excited to have her on our team. CSEA has had several meetings with the district this last month for the means of writing up individual MOUs, hearing from each other and being transparent and getting many questions answered. They have all ended up with resolutions and satisfaction, and I appreciate this great working relationship we have with our district as well as the board. We support you in making the right decisions for not only our unit, but all our staff. This leads to my last point I wanted to end on. To the district and the board, thank you for keeping our students safe and putting them first in your decision making. I personally work with our youngest, sometimes most vulnerable students, infants and toddlers who cannot be vaccinated or wear masks. In all this craziness, we need to remember there's always a bigger picture of why things are being done certain ways. It doesn't always make sense to us because maybe we don't see it on a daily basis, but we have to believe there is a bigger plan. Let's keep working together with humility, understanding, questions, and respect. Thank you. Melissa Cruz, CSEA President for Chapter 383.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you in particular for recognizing what happened with our employees this last month.
Yeah.
And next we have TTEA, and thank you, Ms. Lefevers, for being here on the screen.
Thank you. I showed up at the district office and went, wait, it's kind of dark around here. So I was able to get home in time. I was glad to do that. And, happy Wednesday and happy Groundhog's Day. And hopefully Mr. Puxatani Phil is correct in his predictions that we have 6 more weeks of winter. We could use it up here with a little more snow. So I am Erin Lefevers, an English teacher at North Tahoe High School and the secretary of TTEA. And it's my pleasure to give our TTEA update to the board tonight. First, I'd like to start off by thanking the Superintendent Geisels and the board for listening to and coming up with a solution that allowed our students to continue playing sports at our schools. The students were very pleased with the compromise that could be made, that not only allowed them to continue playing, but also it created events that did not continue to spread COVID. So as we have seen in the latest Sierra Sun, our sports teams are out there battling on the courts, on the slopes, and on the course. Sports are a vital part of our lives and of many of our students, and this has become very apparent in the recent naming of several local athletes to the Olympic teams. Second, I would like to express our gratitude for all the hard work the nurses, administration have been doing with the contact tracing, as well as keeping up with the ever-changing quarantine requirements and stepping in even to help cover our classes. What a January. I don't think I've ever, in my 23 years of teaching, have ever experienced such chaos on campuses, but controlled chaos. It was very nice. TTEA would also like to mention again that we are fully supporting the masking and other COVID mandates that are in place in the schools. As one who faces over 120 students a day, I appreciate the extra layers of protection that not only protect us in our classes, but our students' families and the entire community as well. Next, I wanted to give a shout out to all the teachers who have been juggling massive student absences, quarantining with their classes, covering other teachers' classes, while still delivering quality instruction to their students, all while masked up for hours on end.
And as Thomas Paine opened his American Crisis in 1776, these are times that try men's souls. And sick there because it's trying women's souls as well. But big shout out to everybody with keeping schools moving and going in this crazy time. Lastly, I'd like to end by saying that I was hopeful that the Niners would be playing the Super Bowl this next weekend, but since that's not going to happen, it will give me a chance to cheer on and focus on our homegrown athletes as they compete at the Olympics. Thank you, and good night.
Thanks so much, Erin. Thank you for those great words. We really appreciate it. Okay. Sorry, I need to get back to my agenda here. So our next item is 15.1, and that's the first read of instructional materials for world history.
Ms. Simpson, if you want to speak to this a little bit.
Yes. You'll see on that board item that it was supposed to come at the last meeting. And this is the last book coming through on this history adoption or recommended adoption for the high schools. We didn't have this text available when the big bulk came through last time. So again, this is for world history and for your review.
Board questions on this? I know those folks had access to the books, and it'll come back to us after 30 days, right? Terrific. Thank you. Lots of good history to learn out of that. Okay. Then we have an action item related to revising a classified salary schedule.
Ms. Zapatini, if you'd like to speak to this.
Absolutely. Our salary schedules, it's been our protocol that we keep active positions on the salary schedule. The receptionist position for the DO that we haven't had for a while, we're bringing back. And so this salary schedule simply reflects that position being put back on the active salary schedule.
Questions? Do we have public comment on this item?
No public comment.
Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the revisions to the classified salary schedule.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Member Levac,
Aye.
Member Hennessy,
Aye.
Member Driller,
Aye.
Clerk Larson,
Yes.
President Zurek.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have the first read of board policies. And I did not see any questions in the homework on these. Is that correct? Superintendent Geisels?
There was no questions on the homework.
So, and then something unusual. So I'll just clarify. So I think we had a public comment on one of these. Now, we generally don't take public comment on information items for the board. I'm going to allow it this time just because that may not be clear. But this is not a precedent, so public comment is taken either in the general public comment section, which is coming up here soon, or on action items of the board. But if Mr. Hilton or Lupita, if you will allow that public comment on that item, that would be great.
Eddie's letting him in.
Thank you.
There he is, Mr. Smamulski.
You referring to? I'm sorry. Are you referring to me?
Yes. Did you put down that you wanted to comment on 17.3?
It was 17.2 on the staff development. Yes.
Okay. You have 3 minutes. Please go ahead.
All right. Well, they can hear me. Interesting. Okay. Well, sorry about that.
First, quite a bit of noise in the background from you also.
All right. Well, try to go somewhere quiet.
Okay, so you have 3 minutes.
All right. Thank you. Well, first off, and I guess you'll. see how this ties in at the end. I'm in the meeting right now. I'd like to address the lack of communication I've received from the board and the superintendent. In regards to several emails I've sent, I've also been denied entry to give public comment at the past 2 board meetings. It was not given an accommodation to comment in real time, violating Government Code 54953. I can only surmise that you don't like what I have to say and are purposely blocking my secured right to petition you for the redress of grievances. The main content of my emails address the unlawful and non-existent authority.
Sir, I'm having a hard time figuring out what this has to do with staff development. I'm sorry. This seems to be concerning staff development.
Well, I mean,
if you have a general public comment, you can make a general public comment, but does this have to do with staff development?
Yes, and if you let me finish, you would see how I tie it in at the end.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So anyway, the main content of my emails I was sending you, Carmen, and the board, address the unlawful and non-existent authority that you have in mandating COVID mitigation policies. The only response I've received was somebody claiming to be your attorney who dodged the merits of my questions. I don't care really what your opinions are on COVID. However, it's clear that your COVID mitigation policies are coercing children, teachers, faculty, and members of the district to utilize medical devices and interventions against their will, undoubtedly affecting their physical and mental health. All medical interventions outlined in your COVID policies are subject to emergency use authorization laws, which require informed consent. See Title 21 U.S. Code 360BBB3. And this leads me to the agenda item 17.2 on staff development, which aims to improve staff skills addressing students' well-being, including their physical and mental health. I have a suggestion to help restore students' well-being, and it involves eliminating all of your ongoing mandated COVID policies that have disrupted the children's education for far too long, and give the choice back to the students, parents, teachers, and faculty where it rightfully belongs. Lastly, as part of the staff development, I urge you to stop using your teachers and faculty to do your dirty work. Thank you.
Thank you. So as far as then our board policies, we will move those to consent on the next agenda. Is that okay with the board?
Good job.
Can we mute that public comment person, because we're hearing them in the background? Thank you. And I want to point out that that I appreciate the staff who's trying to work their way through this for the first time using this kind of technology. So thank you. Okay, so is that okay? Am I seeing nodding heads from the board members? I'm sorry. Great, thank you so much. Okay. Next, we're going to move to public comment, general public comment, and I wanted to make a few comments before we do public comment. So the first is to address why we're in a meeting remotely this evening, and we will probably continue to do this for a little bit. As I mentioned at the last meeting, we have had some significant challenges at the district office during our meetings. We've had situations that have put our already very hardworking and I would say overworked staff in some very stressful situations with public who don't agree with some of the district policies, most specifically with keeping their masks on within the school district buildings, as well as so that's been a big one. I'm sorry, keeping the masks on. And then we've had some very harsh treatment of our staff. And we're happy to listen to public comment. We'll listen to what people like and don't like for 3 minutes all night long. But what we won't do is put our staff and other members of the public either at risk or in risky situations that could give them COVID or that could result in some other type of threat or injury. And it just was becoming apparent that it was getting a little too intense in that way. A lot of, when you watch the board meetings, you don't necessarily see that going on because most of the behavior within the boardroom itself is civil. But outside the boardroom, there's some behavior that certainly isn't. And it can become downright scary, frankly. I really thought we were better than this, Tahoe Truckee. I think we can certainly all disagree with each other, but I would hope that we're modeling civil discourse for our students while we're disagreeing, or maybe we can begin to model that, so that really respectful way to disagree with each other. So we made the decision that we could meet remotely. The state law allows us to do that at this point. And really, this may be better because, as my husband wisely pointed out, now folks who don't want to wear masks to our board meetings don't have to. And folks who don't want to be in the gym waiting to make public comments with folks who don't keep their masks on don't have to feel uncomfortable. So this may be a win-win for everyone to do our meetings in this way. I do want to recognize, however, that we feel awkward doing this because our staff and our students are in person every day. And that's why we were so committed to being in person. But again, it's this difficult situation has risen to such a point that we just can't allow that type of situation to go on for our executive staff who mans our school board meetings. And you'll also notice that we moved public comment to the end of the meeting. We think it's really important to get board business done in a smooth fashion. And also this way we don't break up the public comment at the beginning, at the end of the meeting, but we can have it all at the same time. So just kind of wanted to preface that. And I believe Board Member Hennessy had something that she wanted to say also before we start on public comment.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge, that there is on all of our behalf some level of disappointment that we are, like you just said, meeting virtually because we feel we need to. And I wanted to share that after the last board meeting, as we were exiting the building, people were congregating and just, conversing amongst themselves or with each other. But I did have someone run toward me in the parking lot who was very, very upset, cussing and yelling, and taking up a lot of physical space. And I had a couple of staff people that were walking out in the parking lot with everyone leaving the building, really. And I had a staff person basically step in front of me just out of instinct, I think, and I just wanted to share that those are the kinds of things that are starting to happen, and it's concerning. And I don't know, I felt like I had to call Truckee PD. They were on premises, they were in the parking lot. I didn't see them when I made that call, but mostly because we were leaving the board. Some of us board members were leaving, and I was very aware that there were a lot of people still in the building, not just people that were there for public comment, but staff people. And I just felt that I would be more comfortable heading home knowing that Truckee PD was still in the parking lot, was still available. I don't know, that just makes me really sad, but I did want to share that because I don't want people to believe that this board is overreacting. This board is very, in my experience, thoughtful when we make decisions like this, to meet virtually and just when we make all decisions, really. So I just wanted to share what my experience was so that people that might not understand or believe, that they would just hear from me that was something that I experienced, that I carried with me for a couple of days afterwards. And I just wanted to share that with our communities. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Okay, so now we're going to open public comment, and we have folks queued up to speak to us. And we don't have the 30-minute limit because we're at the end of the meeting this evening, so we'll hear all the public comments that we have. Each person is limited, however, to 3 minutes. So Lupita and Ed, if you could start that off, I'd very much appreciate it.
Yes, Ed is we have to wait just for a few minutes to get the people inside, and then we will announce it.
The first commenter is in the room already.
Please go ahead.
Lupita, could you announce them from the Google Doc I started? The first one is Cindy Masio.
Yes.
Good evening. Hi, all. I often think we take for granted how fortunate we are as a community. Our schools have such great support from the community, to the board, and to all the amazing staff. I'd like to take the opportunity to acknowledge the school board for your support and direction during this difficult time. You've had to make and implement hard decisions during this health crisis. I appreciate how you thought about all programs, students, staff, families, and the community. You put into place guidance to protect all of us. Working with a subset of our community that cannot wear masks and where vaccines are not an option yet, I thank you. These have not been easy times, and these are not easy decisions. Your wherewithal and commitment over the years to the students, schools, and programs in this district does not go unnoticed. We don't have to agree on everything, but we do need to be kind to one another. Thank you for weathering the storm. Brighter days are ahead. I'm a long-standing community member. Yes, I also work for the school district, and I'm also a proud parent of a graduate of our Tahoe Truckee Unified School District. So I just thank you guys for everything that you do, and we can weather the storm together.
Thank you, Cindy.
Next, we have Derek Larson. Mr. Larson?
Yes, thank you for the chance to comment. I'm a proud parent of 2 products of the TTUSD system. I've been a biologist and a science educator for 33 years, and I'm also dealing with stressful COVID policies as a science faculty member at Sierra College. I want to thank the board members for your difficult and at times unpopular work. I want community members to understand that you, the board, are trying to set policies around COVID-19 in accordance with regulations handed down to you by the state. I'm seeing disturbing public comments to the effect that you are setting policies arbitrarily with some sinister personal agendas. This is absolutely not true. I see you setting policies in consultation with health experts as you implement state regulations that you have no control over. Like anyone else, I'm weary of COVID rules, and I'd love to throw up my hands and just do what I want. But those responsible for public health and safety do not have the freedom to ignore evidence and rules. Despite what many are saying, the fundamental science has not changed. Vaccines work, and they are our best path to freedom from oppressive COVID rules. However, I understand that some are fearful, and I support their right to their decision not to vaccinate. And my key point here is, so does the board. They offer the alternative to test once a week. This is a minuscule sacrifice to ask of faculty who will not vaccinate, involving a few seconds a week of a swab in the nose. But still, some resist this simple choice, claiming there are microchips or dangerous chemicals on the swabs. This is absolutely 100% verifiably false. If you've ever used a Band-Aid or had a strep test, then you have been exposed to the same materials as those on the test swabs. To refuse this simple alternative as an expression of your fierce individualism is the height of selfishness. We are in this together, but misinformation is tearing us apart. Let's let the board do their job, informed by public health experts and doctors who have sworn a Hippocratic oath to protect human life above all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Derek. Next commenter is?
Next, we have Tyler Durden.
Tyler Durden from the Fight Club movie. Okay, that he has the same name. Please go ahead.
Mr. Durden, if you are able to put your camera on, please.
Mr. Durden, thank you.
Hi, are you able to see me?
Here we are, and we can hear you. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to, to speak to, what Chris said about last week. To my knowledge, nothing happened in the parking lot. I mean, I never went into the parking lot. As far as I know, no one else in our group ever did, so I'm not sure what she saw, what scared her. Maybe it's something I'm not aware of, but, I had already, left before a lot of the other people had left since I had been kicked out of your meeting. I do want to say thank you to the board for, doing the remote meeting. We have a lot more people who are commenting from our group this week, which I think is fantastic. That's the goal of the Brown Act, to be able to, have everyone share in this process. And we're not, leaving anyone out this week. So I think that's great. I also want to thank Kim for taking her mask off in solidarity, with us at the last board meeting. It was caught on camera, and also to your AV guy who did the same. I think it's awesome that you decided to join our, a little revolution or whatever it is. I think that's really cool. Maybe not everyone saw it. Maybe you guys take masks off and we're not around, but, didn't go unnoticed. So thank you, Kim. There's an end in sight if courageous people like you take your masks off at these meetings. So that's all. That's really all I had to say. I'm going to leave the public comment open to others who are, have more insightful things. Thank you.
Thank you. Next public commenter.
Next is Bridget Greenberger.
Ms. Greenberger?
She will be joining in just one moment.
Kim, 1 second. I'm trying to resend the invite to her.
Thank you. Do we want to move on to the next person while we work that out? Does that work for you guys?
I think the moving of the people is the one that takes long.
No problem. We're fine.
Then you put it back on.
Okay, moving on to Lola.
Thank you. Lola Schulus, please.
Oh, looks like she just left the meeting. 1 second. And next up would be.
I can go. It's Lola Schulze.
Gotcha. Thanks, Lola.
Can you guys hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay.
You're not real loud, Lola, so make sure you speak up a little bit, okay?
I attended the last TTUSD board meeting, and I felt like I was watching a child in the throes of a temper tantrum. And I only say that because I witnessed Kim shut down the board meeting because one of the public speakers removed his mask at the end of his speech at the podium. This was a hypocritical power play by the board, I feel. And in watching the public comments, the discussion during private session, it appears that the board was looking for a reason to stop having in-person meetings. To add insult to injury, everyone in attendance witnessed the IT guy and you, Kim, without a mask during and after the meeting. I will send you the screenshots if you would like. I did not attach them to my public comment when I emailed that to you. So again, it appears that the rules only apply to the public and not to the board. It's the same message that we received just days ago from Gavin Newsom, who also was seen not wearing a mask at a sporting event, yet he continues to push his mandates on everyone else. So this board is just as ridiculous as Gavin, in my opinion, and I hope you realize that. How many times have we asked for accommodations so more people can attend and be heard at the TTUSD board meetings? For example, we have on several occasions asked to be allowed a pre-recorded message to be played for those that could not attend in person. A microphone outside, a simple request, so that non-masked individuals could partake in public comment. We requested a call-in option and an interactive Zoom meeting, which thank you for accommodating us with this now, but it's only because you feel unsafe. All seemingly simple solutions and workarounds to allow more of our voices to be heard during these meetings. To date, 0 of these requests have been accommodated. I am infuriated that parents continue to be silenced, pushed out of meetings, and demonized by elected board members while we are fighting for the freedom and the rights of our children. This is not an easy thing for us to do, and we show up every other week. I would like to be heard. Children and parents, this board was elected to protect us. This community wants choice, not mandates or coercion. And I'd like to end with saying a little something to our children. Our Father who arteth in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us for trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next commenter, please.
Next is Bridget Greenberger, if she's there.
Okay, Bridget's still having some trouble. I'll go on to the next one. Miriam?
Thank you.
1 second, please. Miriam should be in the meeting.
I saw her join. Miriam? Miriam?
There, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay.
Did you want to turn your camera on?
And now, yeah, okay, I think.
There you go.
I've got
Okay,
it.
we got you.
Okay, thank you, I'm sorry. Some of this technical stuff I'm not exactly a wizard with. So, my name is Miriam Minnis, and I appreciate being heard by the board this evening. I was very disappointed last meeting, not to be allowed to speak at the last meeting due to the abrupt closure of the comments. As you undoubtedly realize, I'm here to urge you to discontinue mandated COVID policies. I appreciate that you work very hard on a large variety of issues. Some of the supporting data may or may not change over periods of analysis with many of these issues. In the case of COVID, The science has changed. A great deal of current data shows that mandates are not successful. And I will specifically quote from the CDC paper titled Outbreak of SARS-CoV-2 Infections, including COVID-19 vaccine breakthrough infections associated with large public gatherings. Barnstable County, Massachusetts, July 2021. It explains that study found 3/4 of cases occurred in fully vaccinated people. It also found no significant difference in the viral load present in the breakthrough infections occurring in fully vaccinated people and the other cases, suggesting the viral load of vaccinated and unvaccinated persons infected with the coronavirus is similar. I appreciate that you have paid attention to our comments in the past and, for instance, changed the policy with regard to athletic activities. And I would ask that you would continue to be flexible and giving consideration to new things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miriam. If anyone is waiting to make their public comment and hasn't signed on yet, just so you know, if you have like a TV on in the background, it makes it a lot harder for us to hear you. So any background noise really distracts from us being able to hear you clearly.
Looks like now Bridget is on. Ms. Greenberger?
Ms. Greenberger, are you on?
Yes, I'm on. Can you hear me now?
Yes, like I said just now,
Okay.
but you do have some
Okay.
background noise.
I know. I'm trying to be in a very quiet place.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Okay.
And then we can't
Anyway.
see you.
Okay. Anyway, at the last board meeting, I sent my comment in via email to all of you, Carmen and the 5 board members. A couple of you just answered back to say that you received it. However, none of you replied with the answers to the questions or any comments to the truths that I outlined regarding this never-ending pandemic. You know, just in talking and hearing what Derek said, there are 2 narratives going. The mainstream narrative where everybody is being lied to, in my opinion, and then the other narrative that is the truth that is coming out of a host, tens of thousands of doctors and scientists, that is saying that that everything that we're being told about this pandemic is not true. And all we're asking for is that we open up a dialogue. And can we really have some independent thought here and not just swallow what the narrative is saying? And by the way, that is unraveling. And no, vaccines do not work. And masks do not work. People ought to start questioning these things. And no, why are you not questioning these things? These are obvious issues facing our humanity. It is scary to me and very frightening that it is the fact that you take your false authority and hold it over my children without any thought of another side, the truth side. I ask you again to wake up and stop politicizing your authority based on a narrative that is unraveling before our eyes. For nearly a year now, you've been gradually conditioned to view the unvaccinated as enemies. You have been subject to a relentless propaganda campaign designed to divide you from us, to dehumanize us, to paint as science deniers, conspiracy nuts, spreaders of disease, and threats to society. That is simply untrue. And I'm just asking that you open your minds and look at it straight from the FDA. I gave you page 16 from all the adverse events that are happening from these vaccinations. That was before the vaccinations were approved as an emergency use authorization, which is what they still are. emergency use authorization. Whoever is taking these jobs are guinea pigs. You guys are guinea pigs. You are the science. You are not the science. You are the experiment. And you need to please be cognizant of the people who do not want to be part of the experiment. I consider testing part of the experiment, wearing a mask part of the experiment, and ultimately getting vaccinated the part of the experiment. And I just ask for freedom of choice. That's all we've ever asked for. You want to go ahead and do all those things, great, but don't instill it on my children and myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Greenberger.
Next, we have Hillary Benson.
Thank you, Lupita. Ms. Jansen? Miss Jansen, I think that it's a Miss Jansen. Are you there?
Ms. Benson, we just need you to unmute yourself.
Oh, Benson. I'm sorry. I'm saying your name. I apologize.
No.
Please go ahead.
Hi, I'm a mother of a kindergartner in the school district and an ER nurse. It's time to end the masking of kids in school, as well as the endless quarantines of asymptomatic individuals. Some kids are being kept out of school for weeks at a time, despite being vaccinated and having COVID. Parents are fed up. We've reached enough immunity as a community, and we have enough tools now, like vaccines and options for independent study, that at-risk or concerned individuals can stay safe. Continuing these protocols are damaging our kids' futures and our families' livelihoods when parents aren't able to work because their kids are being quarantined. Let's be smart and be ahead of the curve and end these policies that don't make sense. Even Scott Gottlieb, former AFDA commissioner, has come out recently saying it's time to end school mask mandates and accept a higher level of baseline spread. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Benson.
Next, we have Tracy Cornell.
Tracy, you're on.
We're waiting for her to move out of the waiting room.
Thank you.
President Zurich, I just got a message from Lupita saying that they can't see Ms. Cuneo. Ed, is she online or did she jump off?
She's still in the waiting room. She needs to accept the pop-up to move to the board meeting.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and move to Megan O'Leary.
Thank you, Ed. We'll get this smoothed out. Get us all trained. Ms. O'Leary?
Megan O'Leary.
Thank you, Ed.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Tracy.
Tracy. Okay, it's Tracy.
Yes.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah, thanks for waiting. I wanted to read a paragraph out of the Let Them Breathe case that was with San Diego's state, or San Diego, Let Them Breathe versus Governor Newsom lawsuit. And in it was very, very clear in the ruling, and I'll read this paragraph, that the schools are not required to follow the CDHP protocols for quarantining healthy students. You can look this case up online, who are identified as having been exposed at school to individuals who test positive for COVID-19. Additionally, the state does not require schools to provide or perform routine COVID-19 testing of students, does not require them to perform routine testing. Because this challenged CDHP guidance is only a recommendation, boards and administrators need not implement it in their schools. However, our clients do find the quarantining and routine testing of healthy students unreasonable and problematic because it causes healthy students to miss multiple days of in-person education and does not provide any proven community benefit. This has been stated before by many people. Schools that implement broad quarantine and testing protocols, such as those recommended by the state or worse, which is a case of TTUSD, may be subjecting themselves to liability for unnecessarily and unreasonably excluding healthy students from school for prolonged periods of time. And then I want to add that in your COVID-19 policies, there is a bullet that says all students, all adults must wear a face mask when working, volunteering, or visiting when students are present, regardless of vaccination student. So I would say the reason when students are present is because when students are not present, we do not need to wear a mask. So I would ask, why are you requiring people to wear masks inside when, last board meeting we saw Kim take it off. She was not readjusting the mask and took it off. You flipped your hair, you put your hands on the table, and then when you realized you were still live, you threw your mask back on. So when students are present, we understand that that's your policy right now. It's not the proper policy, and you are sacrificing our kids of our community on the altar of money. From what we understand, you're getting $2,500 per student for masking and testing them. We just ask that you improve their mental health, let their mental health heal, because that the mental health of the students is not good. Ask any psychiatrist or psychologist in the town, and they will tell you that they are beyond overbooked. Please don't sacrifice our students at the altar of money. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, Ed.
We have Megan O'Leary already there.
Yep, I see Megan's here. Megan, you want to go ahead? Miss O'Leary?
Megan, make sure to unmute yourself.
Ms. O'Leary?
Okay, I'm putting Heather in. She should be coming in a second.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Megan O'Leary. So we have Megan O'Leary, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi.
We cannot
Sorry.
see you. If you want to be seen, you can turn your camera on.
No, I just wanted to make a few statements. I work in 3 different hospitals, 2 in Nevada, 1 in California. And from what I have seen in the ICU, CCU, ER, vaccinated or unvaccinated, doesn't matter. People are getting this virus. The vaccine does not help. It's not making people any less sick, as they like to tell everyone that it does, because it doesn't. I'm seeing tons of vaccinated people super, super sick, some dying, and the mainstream media doesn't like to portray that because they want to just force these vaccinations on people and children and babies now. And the whole thing is just so corrupt. If there was any science backing what they're trying to push, then I would definitely be willing to look at it. But right now, everything's just a massive rush job. There's absolutely no science backing anything. They did, just months and months of clinical trials. We don't know any long-term effects of this vaccine. And I would like to make masks optional for children. I have 100 and 50 reputable articles stating masks do not work and they only harm kids. And even Dr. Fauci himself said masks don't work. That's all over the media. And it should be personal choice. If parents believe masks and vaccines are going to save them, then let them do that to their children. But for those of us who are actually educated on the subject and have researched exactly the long-term effects, which there are none, then it should just be a choice. And these kids shouldn't go to school feeling inferior that they're not vaccinated. And a lot of schools are doing that to children. They're making them feel inferior. And also, I mean, I think that every child should be tested, not just the unvaccinated, because from what I've seen on the protocols, it looks like the unvaccinated are only being tested when there are symptoms, and the vaccinated carry just as much viral loads as the unvaccinated. And this vaccine does not stop the spread at all. There's no proof of that. So why are we not testing everybody? I'm not really sure exactly what the reasoning is behind any of this, because nothing truly makes sense at all. And everything's just changing every single day. And we need to either get on the same page or just let it go. And, that's all. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. O'Leary.
Next, we have Heather Urea Suleivan. She's on.
Ms. Sullivan, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
After watching the last few board meetings, I felt compelled to come join this meeting and actually speak to thank you all, the board and administrators, for your professionalism and commitment to the safety of our TTUSD school community. So often we only hear from people when they're upset with something we've done. And I feel that it's equally important to also communicate when we are satisfied with what's being done. This is my first year in 15 years that I've not had a child in a TTUSD school. My youngest graduated last year, and that's spent her last 2 years in high school impacted by this pandemic. And even though I don't have a TTUSD child now, I know so many of my friends and community members who still do have children in our schools. And I just wanted to thank you personally for taking this virus seriously and doing as much as you can to make going back into the classroom as safe as possible for both students and staff. I know, and I've just heard at this meeting, that there are plenty of people in our community who don't believe in the science around COVID, the vaccines, and mask wearing. And while I must respect everybody's opinions, I am grateful that the school district has followed the guidelines set forth by experts in the medical field. Experts, the majority of experts in the medical field around the world, saying that this is a serious disease, that vaccines do help, and that mask wearing is an excellent way to keep the virus from spreading. So I'm grateful that the school district has followed these guidelines, and because I know that there are children in the school district and probably staff that have medical conditions that could put them at serious risk should they contract COVID-19. Because COVID-19 acts differently in every case, there are also probably perfectly healthy individuals who could have a bad reaction to contracting COVID. I know several of those people. Having all students and staff wear masks, having all TTUSD staff be vaccinated or test weekly, having all the air purification systems that you have put in place over the last 2 years in the classrooms, and I'm sure you have many, many other protocols that I don't know about, give parents a sense that this district is taking the dangers of this virus very seriously and is committed to the safety of the entire school community. I've seen too many people of all ages get very sick from COVID, with some, including children, still a year and a half later, still experiencing long-term effects. I have also sadly known people who have passed away from this virus. So I thank you again for your commitment to the safety of our community. I thank you for your professionalism when confronted with angry adults fighting these safety protocols and acting in a disrespectful manner to the school board and to district administrators. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan.
Next, we have Margie Suhader.
Margie? Margie, are you there?
Margie, make sure you unmute.
Can you hear me now?
We can both hear and see you. Thank you.
I'm Margie Seaheader. My proceeding began with a California Department of Public Health order that was dated August 11th regarding verification of vaccination. These are the explicit words taken from that document. California has implemented a universal masking requirement in all K through 12 schools. This order is consistent with this requirement for verification of vaccination status. Schools must have a plan for tracking. Unvaccinated workers are required to undergo diagnostic screening testing and must test once a week. But that has all changed. The new order is January 12th, just last month, and the guidelines is new guidance to all K through 12 public schools effective immediately. The verbiage is completely different. It's quoted as the most effective. This guidance is designed to. This approach offers. It's strongly recommended. I didn't read not one word, order, must, required, requirement. So again, I have natural immunity. I'm safe and I'm willing to work. So I don't understand why with this new guidance put out by California Department of Public Health, why I haven't been called back into the office and been called back to work. This is a legal document that just needs to be looked at. Our bodies are amazing and they're miraculous. And through my faith, I wanted to let you know, just share what King David in Psalms wrote. It says, I praise you, God, for you shaped me from inside out. You formed me in my mother's womb. Body and soul, I am wonderfully made. I have faith that I will be able to go back into the classroom. You have the authority under Ed Code 44943 to rescind the charges against me for not following the old orders. And you have the power to reinstate me and get me back into my classroom. I am very safe, I'm very healthy, I'm very willing, and I miss my class. So please consider this. Thank you.
Thank you, Margie. Appreciate it. Do we have any other public commenters?
There's no other public comment.
Okay, we will move on to comments of the board for this evening. Do we want to start with Mr. Larson?
Yes, I'll start, Kim. Thank you. Before I make a couple comments about what I've been doing, listening to these folks last night, I heard one comment that sounded exceptionally loud in my head. It was, how do we know what's true? And I heard other people say the media, it's all over the media. It makes me think, how do I know what I think is true? And I think you have to look at basic research. I've looked at a lot of the research that many of these folks who have been speaking this evening have sent me. And frequently I find stuff that's misquoted. The mask thing for children, where a study showed that children wearing masks, it affects them medically. And so I looked deeper into the reference of that study and found out that the children that were studied were children who had compromised respiratory systems. That's who was studied. Yet this particular study got referenced a couple of different times, and now people are quoting it as masks hurt children. Well, what's truth? And how do you know what's truth? You just have to dig and understand look at the original documents. One of my favorite things to do. So with that said, I tell my fellow board members that I was honored to participate with the student athletes when we had a meeting with them about why they didn't think they needed to suspend athletics and extracurriculars, and these students were so well grounded. It was just amazing. They had good reasons for what they were saying, and they came up with, here's what we'd like to do. And one of them was follow the rules, wear masks. I hope that they're continuing. I have no reason to think they wouldn't do that. These kids were so genuine. And the motivation that sports provide them to come to school was just, I will have to admit, it was very motivating. So that was one. I am now a member of the Facility Master Plan Selection Committee, which George Ross has put together, and he's doing a fabulous job. And so what that allows me to do is read 8 proposals, about 30 pages each, and then scoring them in some way. And I don't know how I agreed to do this, except I said, if you need me, I'll do it. So it's, as facilities go, I always enjoy being involved in them. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Galen. Dee Dee.
Galen, thank you for taking on that role. I have, like my comments are that, I really feel that we're in a really, really wonderful place. And I think that I look out every day thinking how great Tahoe is. And I am obviously saddened that the divide that is apparent at this meeting that we have now is so strong, because we are so lucky where we are. And I think that I'm saddened that we're doing virtual meetings, but I'm in the same boat that it's not something that I'm comfortable being with. There's such distaste and discourse that's happening. So I really, really, really am happy where I live, and I love that we live in Tahoe, and it is such a beautiful place. And I'm hoping that we can sort of bring together our positive thoughts and not do this. Because again, in the end, it's the kids that are weeping. I think when Galen, you mentioned the kids came forth with a proposal to counter what we put forth, and it was successful. It's not like we can't change things. We're all trying to do the best we can to make everybody stay back learning. Obviously, our goal, and has always been our goal, is to put kids back in the classroom. And that has been our forefront thought process from the get-go. So I've swung by Tahoe Lake Elementary a couple times just to say hi. I have not really been able to do much except it's my winter, and I'm sort of knee-deep in ski team. So I'm looking forward to getting some snow so that we can actually hopefully have a little bit more of a mellower winter. It seems a little crazy right now. Good night.
Great. Chris.
Okay, well, I have a couple things. Let's see. I am planning all things unforeseen. I am planning on attending the Olympic rally at North Tahoe High School on, I believe it's Thursday morning. I'm so excited and so proud of all of our area representation. It's going to be such a great Olympics. I also sat in with Galen, with Mr. Larson at the student meeting, or the meeting that the students requested regarding the 3-week extracurricular guidelines that we were enforcing, and they requested this meeting, and we met with athletes. I think we had 1 or 2 theater representatives, athletic directors, principals, and you know what? The students came up with ideas that, you know, would make their programs work. They were thoughtful, they were respectful of each other and of the adults that they were meeting with. We did end up, as you all know, we ended the meeting tweaking the decision based on their input and on the input of the adults that were there to advocate for them and support them. I was just, it was based on that meeting, not on the behavior that was displayed at the school district office protests. I just want to be clear that the decisions that were made based on the suggestions that the students made in the meeting, appropriately and professionally, if that's the right word. So yeah, I'm so excited that they're out there, that the plays, I'm going to see the play at Truckee High twice, so I'm very excited about that. And then let's see, the last thing I would want to say is just like the union representatives shared during the meeting, just all the hard work that was done by so many people filling in for coworkers. I don't even want to name departments because I won't get them all, but I know that every single department, the staff within those departments just did above and beyond, and the teachers and the leadership teams at school sites, just beyond grateful, because I know January was rough in our communities. So thank you to everyone who stepped it up. Thank you for staying positive and moving forward. And just here's a whole brand new month. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And Kirsten.
Well, everyone's comments tonight are very compelling, and I agree with the fellow board members and everything, and everyone is saying. I also wanted to thank so much everybody who commented on behalf of all the hard work we're doing. Cindy Maciel, Melissa Cruz, Aaron Lefevers, and Derek Larson in particular. We really do appreciate the positive feedback very much. It's a difficult time, especially when we're immersed in some toxic rhetoric that hopefully most people realize that this is just a very emotional time in our lives. And we all understand that people are very upset about what's going on in the world and in our schools. But in particular, I think at the end of the day, we're all exhausted. And I know the teachers and the staff in every single department at the end of every day, we just want you to know that we're so grateful for all of your hard work, your persistence, and your determination to keep our school district running. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kirsten. Thanks to all of you. And I don't know that I can add anything. I agree. Our staff is amazing. You're heroes. So thank you very much. We'll adjourn the meeting and meet again in 2 weeks. Thank you so much.